We usually like to think of an apology as healing, or that's the myth anyway. You say that you're sorry. They say, it's okay, and that's where the story ends. But guilt never dissolves away that cleanly. Sometimes, when we apologize, what we're really doing is handing someone else the mess we couldn't bear to hold alone. Guilt isn't just a private weight, it spills out. It affects not just the one who carries it, but the one it's directed toward. There's guilt that crushes the soul, yes, but there's also guilt that's weaponized, not out of malice, but by accident. The kind where someone says, I'm sorry, but you can feel the weight shift. Suddenly, you have to reassure them. Suddenly, you're managing their pain about what they may have done to you. That's not healing, that's transfer of harm. This transfer doesn't even ease the pain of the former either. It essentially spreads the disease. Guilt can also harm the one who apologizes by freezing them in their own regret, making them chase purity and absolution instead of growth. They keep coming back to be forgiven again and again because they think forgiveness will make the guilt disappear. But it won't. Not like that, at least. Not when it's used to avoid the harder work, change. We should know at this point in our lives that guilt is unavoidable. As for those who aren't narcissistic, we should know perfection isn't attainable. We will all make mistakes throughout our lives, some much worse than others, but that doesn't make you any less of a person, unable to be loved, unable to be forgiven, as impossible as it may seem in the moment. Guilt does have a biological purpose, however, to punish a person internally in order to promote behavior which fits better into a society's norms, and to maintain social cooperation by motivating individuals to avoid actions that could harm others or damage their social standing. However, this mechanism isn't entirely functional for the well-being of all people. Guilt in such cases often deeply contributes to someone's depression or inner turmoil. In fact, several studies conclude that excessive or inappropriate actions made out of guilt can indicate someone's depression. Such studies also indicate that guilt, particularly a sort of empathy-based guilt, is most commonly associated with depression and depressive symptoms. This connection to depression could be understood by noting that some individuals experiencing depression are in reality actually attributing certain traumas or negative events to themselves in a way that contributes to feelings of guilt, potentially worsening stability and health. They say sorry to relieve this pressure as an instinct. Guilt becomes more of a burden, less beneficial. Perhaps this is why, in countries like the United States, a highly individualistic nation, we tend to report higher rates of narcissistic personality traits, people who don't apologize, people who don't feel guilt. We obviously should say sorry if we do something abhorrent to another person, but this is really only an acknowledgement or reassurance to the one we apologize to. The real apology lies in the need to grow beyond our former actions and build a more positive character, not just continue as we were formerly. If this ideal scenario was not the case, guilt would harm the one being apologized to, as it demands excessive toil. It says, help me feel okay about this, even when this hurts them. It pulls them into the role of caretaker, comforter, sometimes even the role of a liar, saying, I forgive you, before they're ready, because they feel like they just should. This is the kind of guilt that's not an opening or a healing. It's a cage which traps both people inside. So maybe the real question we should ask isn't, should I apologize? Maybe it's, can I carry the consequences and responsibilities of what I've done without needing someone else to make me feel better first? Because sometimes the most honest thing you could say isn't, I'm sorry. It's, I know I hurt you, and I'm not asking you to make this easier for me. That's where the real healing starts. Not as an instinctual feeling of guilt, but instead in responsibility. the refusal to make someone else bear the weight that's yours personally to carry. So maybe guilt isn't always meant to be handed out to the person you've hurt. Maybe that's asking the wrong person to carry the wrong thing. Perhaps a better way to ease the burden is to bring it to someone who could actually hold it with you without being harmed. A therapist, a trusted friend, someone who wasn't in the blast radius of the action, someone whose job isn't to forgive, but to help you understand yourself better. Someone who can help you make something better out of the burden, not someone to just pass along the negativity to. Because healing doesn't come from shifting weight into the people we've already wounded. It comes from doing the slow, hard work of making ourselves into someone who doesn't need to be forgiven the same way twice.
Flirting with this disaster became me. It named me as a fool.